architect has to thank you because I mean this although short experience in your university has been a really challenging one for me. So I mean I found the cultural environment which was very appealing, very exciting, and the students, I must admit, they were very clever and performative. So thank you very much for inviting. So my classes around these 2 weeks were about, as you said, Italian architecture, but after the Second World War till to the mid of the 70s. We ended yesterday with Aldo Rossi. And so I decided my farewell lecture, the one that I'm delivering today, should have been dedicated to lo más italiano de los arquitectos italianos, who is, according to me, Gio Ponti. And I decided that, the best title for this presentation of Gio Ponti should come from the title of his Bible book, the book he wrote in the mid of the 50s, which is called, of course, Amate l'Architettura. I don't think you really need translation for that because it's very similar to Spanish, and adding Amate l'Architettura y sus arquitectos, and its architects. So I said Gio Ponti is the most Italian of the Italian architects because through all his very long life and career as an architect, there is one dominant thing that has been really, persecuted through all his life, which is the idea that he should express the real absence of Italy as a creative landscape, as a creative land. So he always talk about the Italian gift to the world through art and to its beauty. And this idea expressed in these incredible books made of aphorisms, of short phrases, of short sentences, where he said you should love architecture, whether it is old or new. There is nothing such as old or new architecture. All the architecture is contemporary to us, which I think is a very interesting teaching also for our students today. There is no distinction. History is not the, a sort of storage cupboard for antiquity. So we put Le Corbusier, Mies, and all the others in the storage, and sometimes we take them out to refresh maybe for our project. But I think that, they must live with us, together with us. There must be some sort of constant presences in our work. So the first thing that we must mention about Gio Ponti, is Catholic roots, which are expressed in two very rare small books, not well known at all. One written during wartime. The first is called Paradise Lost, with a question mark, and it's quoting an expression, a very famous expression by Mother Cabrini, that's saying, "Agradezco Dios porque las cosas no van de mi manera," which is the title of the second book, which means in Gio Ponti ways that religion, to be a religion man, must be to accept a religion, not just, let's say, a sort of a passive attitude to go to the church and to pray, but what Catholic religion is still teaching us is to be performative on the social scene. So architecture is the way, the only way for an architect, for an artist to help society to grow. So we have always to keep in mind these roots because they explain the extraordinary vitalism and optimism of a man who refused to consider himself old even when he was 80. So this is a word, an excerpt from from a paper that has never been published that I found in the archive. He wrote it in February 1977, and he will die in 78, so he was 87 years old. And he said, this is a short autobiography, or a Joe Ponti quick story. And he said, I was born in November 18, 1891, and probably, well, of course, I'm not going to translate what you understand better than I do. So he had foreseen that he wanted to live 1 century. So, I mean, he was almost right, because he only, missed a couple of years. So you see 2 pictures when he was just a young child and in the age of, let's say, maturity. And another expression may help to understand what was this incredible vitality of a man who continued to make proposals to, forecast the future. And he said, my vida is una vida perseguitata por la fortuna. Because he thought that life had deserved him all sorts of opportunities that he had to be, he wanted to consider himself a lucky man. And I think this is one of the heritage of his Catholic formation, because at least, I mean, you may believe or not in all the rites and the myths of the church, but of course, the essence of the religious teaching is to be optimistic toward the world, because we have to transform the world. A very close friend of Gio Ponti, the noticeable Roman architect Luigi Moretti, when he went to visit Ponti in just 2 or 3 years before dying, he went to Milano, said, no, described Ponti come un hombre sereno. So he's sereno in the extraordinaria forza e confianza en la vida. And here you see Gio Ponti, he was more than 80s. He was on the building site of one of his most famous work of that period. We are around the mid-70s. It's the Cathedral of Talent. So he is, I mean, you can see how old is he. He's just sitting in a provisory desk that he asked the workmen to arrange for him on the building site of the cathedral in the middle of Taranto. And he's working and making variation, because there is, something that must be corrected or anyway adjourned to the project. And here again, Moretti described Ponti as a total opposition to everything that is gray and is dark. He only sees light. To give a very realistic example of his optimism, this is the house in Via Dezza, which is the last houses he had inhabited since the mid of the 50s. Of course, his wife had died, so he was living alone in this house, this beautiful house. And he had transformed the house in a sort of atelier. All the works that you see over there are paintings, works of paintings that he was constantly doing every moment of his life. And Ponti suffered with cataract by that time, so he couldn't see properly. Everything was a sort of blurring vision of the world. And he said, thanks God, they've invented the felt pen and plexiglass, because even if I do not see, very carefully what I'm doing, with a felt pen, which makes, those sort of very hard lines, I can keep on practicing art. So you can see the houses, how it has been transformed with all the dining desks, the dining tables, transformed in repository for his works of art. Even the windows have been completely recovered with these figures of women and flying figures. Because he was working at this, masterpiece, the Cathedral of Taranto, that he thought should, be considered as a sort of transparent retablo. So the church in itself is only this part, and all this that he called the la vela, the sail, it's a sort of he said it's a net to capture angels. So imagine that the angels could be captured by this net. So he designed 80 windows, let's say, that means just openings, for each angel to be guested there. The cathedral was conceived as having a basin of water in front of it on the main entrance, so that it could be mirrored by the water and accentuate what Ponti calls the illusionistic aspect of architecture. And you can see that he's working with the void. So this is a very interesting and contemporary relation, to work with the void, to make a wall which is completely conceived as a flat screen through which we can see the sky. So there is this sort of melting, of blurring of the volumes of architecture, which is losing gravity, and it's getting light and light. And of course, the issue of light is the main figures of the interior as well. This particular kind of octagonal openings, which becomes a sort of recurrent motif in all its architecture of the times. For instance, these are angels, of course, that that repeat the shape of the opening. And this is a detail of one of these opening with an angel that has been captured by the screen. And you can notice another particular aspects of this research, that was how can we try to make more brilliant and airy the facade of architecture through the use of these tiles in ceramic that he personally designed in a form of a diamond. You see, they are not flat, but they are, as he said, diamond-shaped. He designed more than 40 different types of this sort of tiles, which were produced for him by an Italian manufacturer. And this is the exterior of the chapel of the Hospital of San Carlo in Milano, which is the forerunner of the final explosion in the 70s of the Cathedral of Talent. So it's a sort of barn where to pray, where there are, there is not the idea of a solid volume, but it's more the idea of a structure like a nest, which has been cladded all over the system of the pillars of the frame with a very, very light structure. So inside, it's exactly what Moretti said, the triumph of life, of light. He only sees lights. The first, the first thing we must say, the first principle that he always followed in his life is this idea of made in Italy, which was not, commercial slogan as it is today, but it was more a spiritual logo to say we do not need to do anything to express ourselves. It's just enough that we show ourselves as we are, basta ser italianos. And this is a magazine he contributed to, which is called Aria d'Italia, a beautiful magazine of a very big size. And of course, one of the first affirmation in this field was the foundation in 1928 of the first Italian magazine, Domus, which is, of course, Domus is the Latin word for home, and it's called the art in the house. So there is the idea of the domus, which is, according to Ponti, the most ambitious and challenging task for an architect, to build the house for men, the house for family, and to combine this idea of the house as our private domain to the idea of art. And so he launched this slogan of La Casa all'Italiana, which was which marked the opening of the first issue of Domus. And this says, okay to Le Corbusier and this machine habiter, but we are in Italy, and the Italian house, or the Italian way of conceiving the architecture of the house, has to follow a different paths. One of which is, of course, the first of which is the idea of color. So these are a group of 3 row buildings which simulates the Deutsch model for Siedlung. It's a very short Siedlung in the middle of the city. The original colors were the colors of our national flag. So it was meant to be white, red, and green. And of course, what is the main Italian characteristic of living? He said it's the continuous flow from inside to outside. So he said the house is not a refuge, is not a cave, but it must be open. And to express in architectonical terms this idea of openness, he invented this sort of sovereign-imposed loggia, where you could possibly made for cultivating plants, flowers. And this is an old image, but if you go now in Milano, you won't see the facade because it's completely covered of green. So all his houses have this flourishing of loggia, opening the idea of the roof that becomes a terrace, not the Corbusian way of Villa Savoie, but more like the Mediterranean house, a sort of patio, which is up on the floor. And when in the 50s he started his international career, one of his first buildings he was asked to design was the Italian Institute in Stockholm, and which of course bears in itself the name of Italy. And he said 2 things. First of all, Stockholm is one of the best episodes of my life. And then he said, this building opened up a new research in Ponti, which is the disappearance of the bearing wall. This is an image from the time, but has not changed since then. I've never found ships anymore. I've been there different times, but they assure me that sometimes there is some. The building was completely designed in the interior by Joe Ponti, and he asked for the collaboration with the most well-known, internationally well-known and talented Italian engineer, Pierluigi Nervi, which will sign with him the Grattacieli skyscraper in Milano. So this is the structure designed by Nervi, with a structure made of crossed ribbons. And the idea of Joe Ponti was to make these ribbons not to give them a plastic evidence, but he somehow transformed the ribbons to the middle of a false ceiling here in stripes of light, in order that everything seems floating in the air. I started this lecture with few pictures of the rooms of the life of the house where he spent most parts of his life and where he died. And he called this house in Via Dezza Casa Como Me. I mean, he only lived, of course, in one of these flats, which was not bigger than maybe 80 or 85 square meter. So this gives you a condition when there was not anything such as a star architect, an architect of such international prestige could think decent to live in with his family, a family of 4 people. So, I mean, he lived in 85 meters, but the first thing that he said while he was drawing the house said, a challenge a task that an architect has to cope in modern times with is first of all to imagine that electricity has changed our internal landscape. So this means that as architects, when we design a building, we have to imagine two kinds of vision. The one that is the daily life, when we see volumes, we see the sculptured volumes, we see the colors, of course. But when, everything is dark overnight, there is another vision which arises as a miracle. It's the vision of the apartments, of the flats, lit from the inside, so that, as you see, it makes of the same building both vision during the night and during the day. The house in itself, as I told you, it's rather modest in terms of space, but it's very innovative, very radical in terms of living. You get here, and apart from a nucleus with surfaces, everything is completely open. This, for instance, is a bedroom. You can see there is no door over here because he patented this kind of folding walls. So, all his daughters, when he was having parties, they were prohibited to go to sleep because everything should be folded up in order to show the wall length of the apartment. Because can you see this line with two arrows here? Because he's saying that we have to take advantage of the whole length of the house without any sort of separation. And then you see these other arrows over here, which is a typical device of his drawing, which is showing the perspective that from one point you can get of all the parts of the houses. So this is a picture that is portraying Joe Ponti sitting on one of his chairs, and this other is the wife and one of the son and the daughter. So the corridor is not anymore a corridor, but it's a whole space with its own qualities. The house has been designed by Joe Ponti in every single details, and is encrusted with work of arts made by his friend artist. This is an Italian painter called Massimo Campigli. You can see the prototype of the Superleggera chair, Mario Melotti, and it's full of invention, where the first thing we notice is that nothing is posing its feet on the ground. Everything is suspended on the walls because he hated gravity, and he said that our effort is to make things fly. He even invented and patented, presented it in Domus, this idea that he calls la finestra arredata, la ventana arredata, the furnished window. He said, why should we lose the opportunity of all this glass? What is made all this glass for? I just need one opening to get on the balcony. All these other parts I can furnish it as a sort of cupboard with an invisible backdrop, and so I can put all works of art, a souvenir or whatever, to make the interior much richer. And of course, when it's lit during the night, you can see all these different objects scattering in the void. All the tiling of the floor it's ceramic, and it's only one enormous carpet, ceramic carpet, that goes in diagonal stripes along all the house. This was his bedroom, the master bedroom. You can see there are no walls, just folding walls. And this is, for instance, one of these flying furniture. So, everything is attached to the wall, is suspended above ground, even the bed, as you can see. The covering, the linen covering, has been designed by Joe Ponti. It's called Estate Mediterranea, Verano Mediterraneo, and works of art, checkboard suspended, and on the wall behind his back there was this enormous painting which had been designed by his close friend Massimo Campigli, which figures out the family of the architect. Sorry. So this is Gio Ponti with the 3 daughters and the wife Giulia, which date back around the 40s. So it was less or more at this beginning of the 50s. So this to reinforce the idea of his personal credo in the importance of the family as the fundament of the society, and therefore the importance of designing houses, not just a place where to go to sleep, but a place that should increase the social, psychological interrelation with among the people. The second point I want to stress us is to this invitation to the general audience, to the public. You should not only love architecture and architects, but you should love art and, of course, los artistas. In fact, he always says that this dream of the painting has been a constant of his life, and he's been a very skillful and incredible drawer. He has drawn for all his life. This is one of the letters he used to send to his friends, and I counted roughly maybe 1,500 letters that we know. So, I mean, he could draw and write letters, maybe 15 letters in a day or even in an hour. He just was sitting. And so, I mean, this is the content of the letter. My dear Lydia, my dear friend, I'm thinking to you. And so all the letters are flying in the air in a sort of visual poetry, combining with the silhouette of the figure. But of course, he was a painter as well. He had practiced painting in the 40s in one of his most interesting architecture of the period, which was the University of Padua, the enlargement, the extension of the University of Padua called the Palazzo del Bo. So all these walls around the staircase was personally frescoed by him. So yeah, I mean, he didn't just make a draw and then there were some workers reproducing. He personally did it. And here you find the personal portrait of Gio Ponti while he's fixing himself on the building site of the Palazzo del Bo, you know, with all the colleagues and the Rettore della Universidad that we can see. His collaboration with artists are very crazy sometimes. For instance, one of the craziest one was this man called Barbara Fornasetti, which he asked to, let's say, cover somehow the surfaces of architecture and even furniture that he used to design. For instance, this is una sedia that he had designed for Anala Armando Planchart, and he asked Fornasetti to make some proposals of drawings. So there are some with butterflies, some other with piece of newspaper from Caracas, and this is an apartment where, for instance, you do not see any sort of storage, but all these walls really are storage. They open, you can slightly see from here, and they have lights inside, and they have a niche with pieces of art that can be incorporated. This is another man from Padua, one of most well-known artists in the arts of emailing, which is De Poli. So this is the upper part of a table for garden, made in ceramics and emails by this man De Poli. And these are some of the forms of animals and of evils that Ponti used to draw, you know, as you've seen in the letter, and then De Poli translated into reality. But the work that best of all summarize all these aspects of being Italian and being and living with artists, working with artists, is absolutely masterpiece upon me, which is Una Villa Fiorentina, as it was Christianized suddenly in Caracas, which is the Villa Plancharte, La Quinta Plancharte, on the top hill of a wonderful place, one of the most wonderful place in Caracas, still miraculously intact. They've been transformed in a foundation, so everything is completely been left as Ponti had designed it. This is the office in the garage that our professor here has visited personally in the 50s. So this was, he had in, behind the Casa in Via Dezza, his last house, he had an office which was an atelier, which was a garage, a parking garage. He had transformed it in atelier, and all the people in the office could drive with their Vespa inside the office and park it near the desk. It was the flourishing, the boom, the first boom of Italian design, of Italian economic miracle. And so there was this idea of being very much confident with the future, a very optimistic period. So this is Gio Ponti waiting for an ala Armando Plancharte. Here there's one of the first model of his house. And this is the way he used to work, through drawings and to making very quick maquette that should taste the good or right of his intuition. This is one of the first maquettes that he called Esta casa es como una mariposa. So the first idea was the likeness of a butterfly which is posing on the top of the hill looking at Caracas. This is one of the first drawings, and you will see, I mean, it's very unusual. We think often of the Mediterranean house or the tropical house in the American way, let's say the way that, for instance, Richard Neutra was experimenting very close to that in California, which was the glass house completely opened. So I said, that's absolutely ridiculous because, I mean, you have to realize the openness in the inside with the patio, as we very well know from the Mediterranean house, because if you put glasses all around, I mean, you do not even distinguish the landscape all around because there is no sense of separation between inside and outside. So he designed at the end this beautiful plan. You can see all these lines are starting from an eye, so you can see this eye, and all these lines indicates his obsession to make a house which was apparently closed from the outside but completely open inside, along his idea of the house as a crystal. A crystal has many faces, so it reflects and alters the landscape that is reflected inside. And so the house must be like a crystal. So from here, I can look through all this length on the outside garden, and so on and so on. So there is this metaphor of the eye, the house and the architecture is measured by the eye, and this idea of figuring people, men and women, because architecture is not, an abstract composition made by the architects, but architecture is inhabited and, for real people. So these are some of the vision that, for instance, this is a guest bedroom on the upper floor. Through this bedroom, you can have a perfect vision of the inside patio, and of course you can see the sky. Now, can you imagine, I've lived in this house for 10 days during summertime when it was very hot outside. There is no air conditioning, and you do not need, you even have to close maybe some windows because it gets very chilly inside. So this is another good teaching we can learn about sustainability and architecture. You can be sustainable just using the skills of architecture and not, putting all those sort of strange things. This is another vision from the garden. There is a glass door, and through the atrium and the small drawing room, which is completely open, you can look till to the most secret part inside, which is this patio over here, which receives the light from above. So the eyes is completely, let's say, open inside, but not open in the Miesian way, where the space completely flows in all directions, but it is opened along some sort of visual corridors. This is a quote from a sentence he used to say, the house must be beautiful as a crystal. A crystal, but at the same time, it has to combine the quality of crystal to the quality of an encrusted cave. So it's the faces of the crystals that make reflection of the several parts of the house. This is a drawing for the decoration, but most of all, what makes this house the prototype of the Italian house is that, this is very crazy, everything from the marble of the floor, which are a selection of Italian marbles of different regions, made as a dress of Harlequin, okay? So it's been appositely designed like this, from the marbles to the incrustation of ceramics by Fausto Melotti, to the works of art, to the lamps, even to the Vichy sanitaries, even the plates, the dishes that were used by Anala Planchard, and I had the incredible chance to have dinner with her in these dishes designed by Ponti. Everything came from Italy through cargo. So you can imagine, I mean, such a foolish thing. There is only one thing that Anala Planchard opposed the resistance. He said, no, my private linen for my bedroom, I want to choose them myself. So, because he offered to design, you know, special linen even for the bedrooms or for the toilets. So, everything is designed in a fresh way in order to, let's say, accomplish a sort of geometry which is walking about this issue of the crystal, la forma cristallina, the crystal-like form. So this is, can be an hexagon or quadrangle or a rhomb divided into triangles, and each part is of a different colors. So there is, I mean, this is just a couple of slides, but you can see a lot. And then he said, fui profeta diciendo que todo deba ser colorado. This idea of the colors, everything is colored. This is the Comedor Tropical, which is the second dining desk, which you cannot move because it's one slab of stone, and which is fronts directly the patio, the patio. Then, of course, there is another Comedor. And yes, for instance, here you can see, he said, why it's so awful to have, you know, those dining tables when you have parties where all the people are sitting like in Leonardo da Vinci Last Supper. So, I mean, it's so boring. So why don't you make different tables? And of course, he designed each of them, and they came from Italy, that you can adjust the different levels. So you can be a tea table or coffee table or a dining table. You can adjust, and then you can put together in order to form a different informal combination for the people to sit and to talk each other while they're having comida. This is one of the final view of the main hall with the entrance to the garden, the personal studio of Armando Planchard, and here you see the upper floor that has a loggia, an open corridor, which links the sun is the Armando Planchard. So this is the bedroom of Armando Planchard. We symbolized by by the sun, and opposite there is the balcony with the open balcony with the sign of the moon, which is an alla planciata. The windows of the bedroom, they can be opened this way, and of course they are painted with the same motif of the harlequin. And this is the symbol of an alla Armando Planciata that he put everywhere, even on as a decoration on the serving dishes that he made in Florence, Richard Ginori, Florence. This is what as Ponti said confidently to some friends. This was the most engaging and embarrassing environment he had to study, because this is the office of Armando Planciata, who once had gone to Africa to make a safari. So he came back with heads of both antelopes, lions, and so on, and he wanted to exhibit them. So he said, I've been working for a month, because I refused, to expose these heads, which are revolting. So he invented a solution, and he immediately wrote a telegram to Armando Planciata, writing, I found a solution for los búfalos rotantes. So los búfalos rotantes is this idea of creating niches. So when you push about, there is a pattern over there, and you push it, and by electricity, this niche opens, the door opens. So normally it's like this. When Armando had friends that he wanted to impress, he pushed the button, so it was revolting, and you could have seen the heads of the animals. And of course, another invention that he has been exploiting since the 50s is the invention of the stairs that disappears. Because here, when you go up to the stairs, you see the different colors, okay? So these are all different marbles. But when you get up at the end of the stairs and you look back, you see that he used for here all the same marble in white. So the stairs disappears, because he said, oh, where is it? It was all colored, and now it's all gray. And of course, for instance, this is another invention to make the motif of the playing cards, because they used to play, of course, bridge, and so all these kind of things. So even the flooring, the tiling of the marble tiling of the floor of this game room took decoration and inspiration from its function. This is the main wooden staircase that you meet when you get firstly in the entrance, and that takes you to the upper floor. And this is parts of the decoration of the patio, which is here. All this is a beautiful work of ceramic made by very famous abstract Italian sculptor, Fausto Melotti, who imagined this as a revisitation of a tradition which goes to Alhambra or whatever you want, but made in according to modern time. So this is the very core of the house, which here again is not closed, but it's opened. It's as a piece of sky encapsulated inside the house. Of course, apart from the buffaloes, the other passion of Armando Planciata was to the plantation of orchids. And so still today there is at least 2 greenhouses with thousands of different kinds of orchids. And when you reach the upper floor, you can see the mountain of Avila, which struck Ponti so much. You had to imagine that the valley of Avila during the 50s was a sort of paradise. Now it's completely disappeared because there has been such an intense sprawl that the only natural point that is remaining over there is the hill of El Cerrito, the little hill where the house is. From his unpublished testament of 1977, Okay, he was being a sort of ironical himself, you know, saying, teniendo 90 años menos 4. So he had, of course, 86, was very close to died. All I write has the value of, let's say, a message, and after that message, a testament. So I can permit myself everything. And of course, the thing that could be considered as a red link to all his career was this idea of lightness. So he invented this theory that the history of humanity can be conceived as a progressive freedom from the burden of gravity. So we have l'età del bronzo, l'età della pietra, l'età del hierro, and so on. And then we have the età del vidrio. So, I mean, the progress of human civilization goes from everything which is art, which is square, which is heavy, to the idea of complete lightness. And so we can understand why, I mean, the atmosphere of this lightness was the idea of projecting with light, or designing light. The idea of light is connected to the idea of movement, and it's figured up in the imagination of Ponti with the figure of the angel. The angel are the in-between the sky and our internal sensibility. The angel, and sometimes maybe the devil, but a playful devil, are the intermediate between the mystery of religion and the mystery of art. So the figure of angel has been mostly explored by Ponti since his first architecture. In 1926, he built a house in Garches, paradoxically not far from the famous Villa Stein in Garches by Le Corbusier, which had on the main entrance this emblem of the flying angel, and the French way the house is called as named l'ange volant. And the flying angels were all around the windows of his house in Via Dezza, this figure of angels, and at the age of 80s, when he was alone in his house, he said, "What? I need to, that I feel to do something. What can I do? Yes, I want to invent a cathedral to give a gift to the city of Los Angeles." So imagine it, and even get it built, an enormous sculpture in steel, this one, made of plates, which is as high as maybe 5 meters or something like that. And this was the maquette of a project that he drew for the city of Los Angeles. He said, if it is called Los Angeles, it means that I have to build la cattedrale por Los Angeles. So this is the shape of an enormous angel. These are the openings as the one that we've seen in the Cathedral of Talent. So this idea that everything must fly, even the skyscraper, he considered the skyscraper as an abstract representation of an angel called aureola, because of course the roof is flying, and through the light we can see during the night it's magically flying. This idea of challenging the laws of gravity, of course, was exploited through all the means of his imagination. This chair is called the Superleggera, not light, but super light. And in effect, it demonstrates in the arts of the time that even a child with only one finger, he can lift up the chair. And even in a building built in the 40s, which is one of the most advanced commercial building, office building for its technology, built in Italy, not only in Milano, full of technology, which at first appearance looks rather heavy. This building is an experiment, even a technological experiment. How can I realize a facade as long as 100 meters, which looks light, to using light of marbles. The marbles was produced by the society itself, so it was a sort of auto-logo, auto-promotion of the society in itself. And all the fixture of the windows are in aluminum, cast in aluminum, designed by Ponti, and completely flat. So they are not creating shadows. They are exactly the same level of the marble facade. So he wanted to experiment this idea that found its most famous maybe expression, of course, in the Pirelli skyscraper, which is based on the idea of the architettura es un cristallo. Assoluta, definitiva, come un cristallo, quando è pura. Architecture is a crystal means that, I mean, this was his personal polemic with international style, that an architecture is pure when nothing can be touched. If you build a skyscraper, it's not the case of single building, but let's say a skyscraper along the standard of the time. You could add one or more, two more floors without changing, let's say, the impact of the building itself. So he said, that's wrong. So this is not architecture. If I can keep on adding floors, the form is not a closed one that should pertain the domain of architecture. So we was experiencing with Pirelli for the first time the idea of escaping the rectangular traditional form of the skyscraper and making this sort of two shells, which was obviously magnificently supported by the engineer Pierluigi Nervi, who invented this structure over here. So this is sort of internal frames that go from one side to the other in order to avoid any sort of pillars inside. So in section you see the functioning of the functioning of the building, and you can see that the pillars of the main frame, as it gets to the end, it gets thinner. So it's like a fork, let's say. And of course, you can see this tricky device of not resting the roof on the board pillars, but of resting it inside, so that you can lit it during the night. And this part over here, it still functions today as a sort of observatory deck. It's void. He wanted it void because it's the only part of the building where you can appreciate the structure by Luigi Nervi. He said, onore alla tecnica. Let's pay honor to the technique and to the engineer. So the building is closed, but anyway, is not closed in a dull way. It's not a shoebox, because, I mean, this surface is molded, is folded, and there is two profound, two very deep cuts over here. You can see that even the triangular points do not close themselves, but they are a little bit diverging, because during the night this is lit, and so the whole form of the skyscraper is disappearing. So he starts to work about this idea, how can I contribute to an image of the skyscraper a little bit different? And so he's working with drawings like this, and mainly with this, which is coming very close to, to the main core of lightness. Can I make a facade of a building which is completely independent from the structure, and what that is the absence of the architecture in itself? So the facade is just like a drapery. This is, the Birkhoff department store in Eindhoven, Holland, and this is a detail. Of course, it's all covered with ceramics. And the other great contribution was his first building in the USA, the Denver Art Museum, Colorado, which he says, he explained in these words. Okay. So everything is reduced to the state of a skin. There is no windows, but just openings. So you can perceive the lightness of the skin and the destruction of the volume, which was, and we are coming near to the end, some of three buildings that he built in the last part of his career, one in the center of Milano, the inner building. This is some drawing, some of the 100 drawings that shows this compulsory intent of dissolving the form, and to reduce the whole surface, somehow reminiscent of what Joseph Hofmann, which was one of his best friends, had done with the Palais Stocklet in Bruxelles, to reduce the architecture to a plane of cars, very light cars. So you can see another one near the central station, Via Montedoria. This system of composing the facade, avoiding the uniformity. So it's three basic sides of the windows, but they are combined in vertical stripes that are each one different from the other, in order to have this very special effect of a skin which is shimmering after the play of the lights during the different parts of the day, because it depends how the sun reflects and creates shadows. And this, I think, is the most incredible piece of Weber. He designed this building when he was more than 80, and he produced a plan like this. I mean, this is absolutely contemporary. It looks like the best of Herzog de Meuron, if you believe it. It's a building which has been conceived as a continuous play of origami art, which has no, is not rectangular, it's no particular form, it's just a continuous line, which breaks the idea that a building has four facades. Because what is the facade? How can we describe the facade of this building? There is no facade at all. It's just a continuous packaging all around the structure, which offers, like a stage set, different perspectives on the vision of the same piece. So it's a landscape of its own that can be seen as something which is implementing the quality of the urban scene. And I want to conclude with this quote from Gio Ponti again, when he says we are at the beginning of a new era, a new civilization, the civilization of lightness. So we must walk on the surfaces, which does not mean to be superficial, but on the contrary, it means we have to employ all our skillfulness using the new materials, in this case ceramics, but he even was thinking about the possibility, here again at the age of 80s, of using plastic for the facade of a building. He said, my dream would be, before dying, to build a building completely in plastic, because it's one of the benefits that we receive from civilization. The last thing I would say is that I said he was Catholic, but he was not, of course, a man of prayer or church. He was actively involved. So he said, never forget that God has created us, has created nature, but we have created something better, which is art. Art is the gift that man has done to God. Gracias. Okay. So I hope that maybe this could function as a solicitation for you to come to Milan. So I would be pleased if you come to tour you to some of these buildings, because I really feel like a mission to, deeply get involved and to write about, especially this last period of Ponti, which is nearly completely unknown, because, I still, every time I pass there while driving or walking, I feel astonished by the modernity, the complete modernity. And there is people coming, from England, from Zurich, from whatever, and they come to take pictures and ask me to give lectures there, because they are completely attracted by the novelty of something that they did not know. and which is very much like the interest of the newer generation, this idea of the facade as a completely autonomous field of intervention of research. So please come to Milano, if not for the expo, just for seeing Joe Ponti, and I will welcome you.